Right, so I've got this sexy frame installed back in the shell. I've got the shell propped up on some spaces so it doesn't fall forward, so the weight of the CRT inside it. And propped up against the pellet heater so it doesn't slide backwards as I'm trying to lift it on there. And I'm going to get the screen from there over there without dying. So I've encountered a massive problem. I've lifted the screen into place and I've got the studs in on one side, but the other ones are out by, I'd say, about 20 millimeters. So it turns out this frame is very close to square. The distance up and down is pretty well the same as the distance. So that doesn't need to be modified, which is handy, but the problem I've got is the dimension up and down here is okay, but the dimension between them is incorrect. So what I've got to do is tap another hole in here. I'll just do another 5 millimeters, and that should give enough adjustment with the size of that hole. Okay, so I've just tapped an extra hole offset as close as I can fit to the other hole, so I can spread the frame a bit wider each side. I think what happened is on the Namco frame, the mounting holes here are actually slotted so that it could mount both ways properly. I guess they weren't completely square the way they went, and when I measured the offset here, I actually sat this on top of the other Namco frame and drilled the holes where they sat. It was taking into account the differences in the frame and the fact that these were slotted in the Namco cabinet, so I'm just going to try that, simplest way I can think of, and see if it gets me out of trouble. I used some copper washers behind because of the massively off to one side and to give it some grip so it doesn't move. Okay, so I've gotten away with those mods. The screen's in there, it's bolted down. I had to loosen the mounts that went to the tube and wriggle it around a bit to get it in the right spot, but it fits great. Now the bezel doesn't 100% fit the curve of the tube. There's a bit of a gap the top and the bottom and that. Unless someone told you, you wouldn't see it, so I don't mind. And this is totally a survivor build cab. It was just, I didn't even think I was going to get to this stage, seriously. The frame, I can't believe I got that done. It's taken days, well, a couple of hours here and there over several days, but I'm there now. There's a few scratches in the screen. I don't know if I put them in there when it's been kicking the shed or while I've been mucking around with it in here, but the TV too, that's a bit of a survivor. I got that free when I was in CRT Horde mode a while ago. It's an NEC TV, I thought it was a piece of junk. Turned it on, hardly worked at all. And I thought, oh, why not mod it for the hell of it? Or why not repair it first? So first I repaired it. The chassis was actually scorched and it had a whole heap of capacitors that needed replacing. With some other parts that were dodgy as well. I replaced those. And it came up with a really good picture, and I thought, oh well, why not do the RGB mod? So I did that, and it actually worked out really well. So I thought I'll hold on to this, and then I found out that the Philips tubes were meant to be really good for these cabs. So there it is, Survivor TV, Survivor cabinet, and this means I've now got a vertical cabinet. I was considering flipping my Excelina and then just using my Namco Cyberlead as my horizontal cabinet, but I sort of didn't like the idea of the flipped, like the vertical portrait mode in the Excelina, because it's a really wide cab, but the Astro City is a really narrow cab and I think it suits the portrait mode perfectly, so I'm actually pretty excited about this. So next I'll probably get the bottom back on there again so I can move it around properly. Right, so I've got the front back on. Now I need to make some braces that go between here and the frame. Problem, the reason they need to be there is because when you lift it up with the weight of the CRT in there, it wants to snap the front of the cabinet off. So I've made some brackets, just bent them with the press, drilled some holes for the self-tappers in the bottom, drilled some bigger holes for some M6 bolts to go through. Right, you can see a couple of rib nuts put in there. The top one didn't want to grab, so I had to use alternate means to pull it in, but it works okay. On this side, done the same, installed the bracket, Right, so I've painted up those reinforcing brackets, I've bolted them back in. It's now able to be lifted from the front without breaking, so that's good. So next I have to hook up a test pattern, I suppose, to the monitor, probably turn it around facing the compass direction that I'm going to be using it. Then have a bit of a play with the convergence, get it near enough. These horrible bloody buttons. This is originally a 3-button cab, I think. Yeah, so these three buttons here are installed okay. These bottom buttons, they've used a hole saw that's too big. And they're that sloppy and that's ridiculous. And they've used Gorilla Glue or something to stick them in and fix the sloppiness. But it's completely and utterly freaking horrible. So they've almost written off this front panel. Not quite sure what I want to do yet. Because it's vertical, I might only need 3 buttons, so I might patch the other buttons. Okay, so the speakers have been removed from this cab, along with everything else. So I've got to try and make some speakers fit. I got the speakers out of the TV because not too bad a fit, but yeah, the holes don't line up and they're not going to seal properly. So I'm going to try and make adapters up with this polymorph resin, sort of make a rim that goes around, screws into there and screws into the speakers as well. The story with this plastic is it just heats up in hot water and basically turns to plasticine. It cools down again, it goes hard like nylon basically. It's pretty good. Let's see if I can make it work though. Before I do the polymorph part, I just removed the marquee. Just double-sided tape in there, just used the car trim removal tool to go around. Felt like it was going to break, but came out in one piece in the end. These were annoying me, they're quite rusted, so it's going to hit them with a wire brush and then a bit of black, and they'll be good again. Okay, while I've been painting up the speakers, I've just cleaned all the adhesive residue off this frame, off this faceplate. Tried to use orange cleaner, didn't work that well. So I went on to brake cleaner, that worked fairly well, took a lot of rubbing though, but eventually got there. As for the speaker grills, haven't finished painting them yet, but just used edge primer, acrylic and gloss black. Acrylic because I want it to dry a bit quicker. Alright, I'm set up, get some screws to put in here. When I start applying the plastic, or when I mud the plastic, might have drive the screws through. Hold it in place and then hopefully sit the speakers down on there. I'm not sure how it's going to go. I haven't done something quite this big with it before. But anyway, start putting some boiling water into this container. Alright, now it's sitting on there, it'll slump with gravity a bit unfortunately, so I have to just sort of keep pushing at it, keep checking it, make sure it's sealed okay. Then when it's finished, I'll probably have to use a rasp and shape it up a bit so it doesn't foul the cones. And if it doesn't work, I can just drop each one of these in hot water and reshape them again. Right, so I've removed the speakers while it's still a little bit soft, so that I didn't destroy them getting them out. This side worked out really well. This one sort of pushed up into the speaker a lot. I'm going to have to try and remove a fair bit of the plastic. I'm not sure if it's going to work out. See how it goes. It actually nearly tore the speaker apart. Peeling it apart, I just got away with it. May have to do this side again. I'll rasp it and see how it comes up. But yeah, I recommend pulling the speakers out and pulling the screws out before it fully sets, because otherwise it's really hard to get to. See, there's a couple of the heads gone underneath the polymorph. So yeah, make sure you pull them out before it's fully hard. So I've got these done now. The second one I did came out perfectly, didn't even have to adjust it, it's just spot on. Second one, I mean the original one, the first one, the plastic stuck to the speaker and I had it pushed down too far, I was off centre and it actually damaged the speaker pulling off. I think I said that, it took about half an hour of fiddling to get that right. I would have been better off starting again, but I was scared that any more adhesion to the speaker was going to kill it, but so there it is. Can only mount it with 3 screws, but I tested the speaker cone movement and it doesn't hit, so. So the fluoro tube in the back of the cab that lights up the marquee, also missing. So I went to Bunnings and got this surface mounted LED strip light. It was like $17. Quick lesson in electrical safety. Don't do this. So this has worked out quite well. Existing mounting screws for the old button. This surface mount button, it's got these clips, it's going to go straight on there. Hopefully. Can't really ask for much better than that. The only problem it's really got is the light bleed through that polymorph plastic. Might just put some tape around the back of that to try and ease it up and see if that makes it any better. Okay, still a tiny, well, we can't even see it on camera, a tiny little bit's bleeding out around the top edges, but not even concerned. The tape fixed it pretty well. Okay, so that's one job out of the way.